Hi, everyone. This is Stephen Wygand here, and I'm with the wonderful Michelle Mache. We've been talking lots about what's going on in the world, and there is so much going on. Let's just dive right in, Michelle.
Yeah, let's. All right, Stephen. I'm glad we're doing this. Oh, you and I have been talking a lot about a lot that's going on, and then I've gotten a lot of emails and DMs of what's going on, and of course, people that I work with in workshops as well as clients. So I think this is like so timely that we're taking
So
this time
timely
to
and
talk.
so needed. Thank you for taking the time to help us all out. We need it.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just start with we're here in December 2021, getting ready to head into the new year. I mean, my mind is jumping to where are we going over the next 4 or 5 years, but let's just look at where we're going next year. There's obviously lots going on with human rights in several facets of life. Maybe let's just start there.
Mm. Okay. Well, first of all, it's very interesting because I've been getting the information through visions and some trance channeling and some as well as conscious channeling. And in fact, you were at some of my early channelings in the, I don't know, 2007, 2009
Mhm.
with the guides and the oversouls, and subsequent other workshops where I shared a lot of information. And, I always wondered, how are we going to get to where we're going as a collective? Not just within the United States or Europe, but world. How is this world, the worldview, going to change? And so we're really in the perhaps transition change, but also growing pains of this, I would say,
Mhm.
is a way to look at it. And there's multiple agendas. I don't know if, or plans. I think a lot of people want to think of what's going on as very black and white, good and evil, very binary. We just have a lot of different aspects of reality, of ways of living on the earth for thousands of years. So we're changing patterns that not too, people say 2,000 years. No, you go back into Mesopotamia, Babylonia, ancient Greece, biblical times. We have the same relating pattern, the same way of being, the same game with the invader dominator culture, those that feel power over and those that are overpowering. We have those dynamics, and those are changing. Those are all from what we call the metaphysically the original separation. Instead of understanding that we separate out, in the old game, we began to look at ourselves as separate from source, and then therefore separate from each other. And when we have a lot of separation, that breeds fear of the other. Even within ourselves, people fear parts of our, remember back, and maybe they still do this, but I'm thinking ancient religious times with the whip, the flagellation. The monks would whip themselves because they had certain thoughts or impulses or ideas. That's fear of the self, fear of the impulse. So we're going through a phase where this kind of lifestyle way of thinking is coming up from the dredges of the subconscious. It's coming up through the archetypal energy that we all are. We all basically are this holographic matrix, and you look at the soul, this design that we are, and we're all interconnected. We are, as we say metaphysically, from the one. From the one is the many, and from the many comes the one. So that multi-universe or universe, or the multiple ways that reality plays out. So everything that is on this planet is not only needed and necessary, but holds a complex of vibrational frequencies and wavelengths that then get manifested out into form if there's enough resonance. Now
I
that's
like that.
why.
Sorry, I just want to jump in
Tell
because
me.
already I feel like my shoulders dropped about an inch because where you're coming from, which seems to be different than some of the other things I'm hearing out there, is a more kind of holographic point of view. From what I just gathered from what you're saying, this has kind of been in play. What's happening right now has been in play for a long time. We're just now
Yes.
seeing the effects of it. Would that be accurate?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And until we get out of the us and them, the red and the blue, the conservative, the Labor Party, you know what I'm saying? All of this,
Yeah.
that's still going to play out, and we still will have polarity. This is, one of the only experiences or planetary experiences where we have these high level of emotions, energy and motion, and we get to play this out as individuated aspects of God or the all that is, or innate intelligence, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it, the quantum aspect of us. And in essence, we are the all that is, or God, or and I use God as an energy. That's what I did my thesis on. God is an energy. So it's the all that is. It's the totality. It's a good name for it. Infinite creative intelligence, spirit. A lot of different ways to look at it. The all that is another good. All of life plays out through polarities. We've been playing out through the extremes of polarity. Now, one thing that people are going to have to kind of wrap their mind around is when something is no longer needed or necessary vibrationally, it ceases to exist. That's just how life is. Not many of us use the typewriter anymore or cassette tapes, right? They weren't bad. They weren't necessarily limited for their time, but we've evolved or moved through something else. So, in saying that, again, I want to reiterate whatever we have planetarily, there is a vibrational frequency within us that holds that. It's like the seed becomes the tree, but the seed is still there, and the tree is within the seed. So we wouldn't be on this planet. So that's why getting into the extremes of opposite, then we separate out. Now that doesn't mean if people or situations are harmful, we have to call things out. But if we can in our mind hold the frequency of which is ascension, ascending beyond the extremes of polarity, if we can hold the understanding that this is playing something out that's part of the planetary existence. What happens right now, which perpetuates the separation, the division, which is part of the unification process. We are in the unification process, part of ascension, soul alignment, where the personality is going to be more subsumed into the soul. We can talk into that later, our gifts and what's going to be coming. We are in that. And what happens when people fear that something is going to be taken away from them? They either, fight, flee, get frozen,
Or cling on, hold
or
on.
cling on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of clinging on right now. You see a lot of fighting, and even with the quote unquote power structures. Now, there was a time that there was more equal power on the planet. This is really important. And what happened was the people that weren't into creating structures, but let's say using them, began to give their power away. And this is why it's always said a little bit that in the Aquarian age that it'll be the common man, the common person. And you see more of that. Reality TV, you see regular people trading now since the 90s, which was one of my predictions, by the way, back
Yeah,
then. And people
I
said,
remember.
remember, people said, oh, you're crazy. That'll never
Yeah.
happen. Regular
Yeah.
people that can't do this.
You also predicted the iPhone when the iPhone was going to come out. I remember that as
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. So there's this leveling of the playing field, and we have to be aware not to those of you that don't understand Lemurian times or Atlantean times, to not repeat feeling victimized. Now, mind you, yes, we get victimized. I've had things happen to me. I was definitely a victim. Yes, we do get hurt and harmed by other people, sometimes even ourselves, and that's a whole human process I don't want to diminish, working through trauma and grief and being very present to that. However, we can still always connect into the metaphysical view. We may not be able to always live through, but just to have it in our mind that vibrationally, esoterically, what we can't see through the subtle energy, we are all interconnected. So there has to be vibrational resonance. Even if it's a small amount, there's a reason that something is getting played out. In esoteric principles, it's looked at as God is growing. The all that is, the quantum aspect of us, and has growth spurts where it does change the game on Earth. You can see sometimes these quantum leaps. So everyone in essence is this design or matrix with a soul signature frequency that I like to say has a question in their life, and they are also the answer. That it's also source, it's God source energies as you going through life, going through this. So in knowing this, if we begin to ascend or get out of the extremes of the polarity, we can hold the opposites and be in the center and understand why people do traumatizing things or have all this control. It's basically fear. People say greed, but greed comes from fear. You're not greedy when you're living abundantly, when you know you have enough. That one time where the group, and I would say people in a sense like me, if we're going to look at certain people that maybe use systems, but or help evolve them or transmute the energy to transform it. This is a certain group of the other, let's say, the other aspect that over time gave up their power, their empowerment. We have a lot of power right now. And the power isn't just marching. I mean, all that helps to bring awareness. It's where we spend our time, our energy, our money. It's our mindset. And so it became easier, just like in religions, if I just believe this, I'll get to heaven. I'll be safe. I'll get to Shambhala. I'll be okay. If I just eat this and this, if I take this pill, I'm going to be okay. That's all I need to know. So that's what's greatly going to change. That's why this has been termed the rude awakening, is because
it seems like it is changing. Yeah.
It is, right? And it's going to be the people within systems that create the greatest change. You or I that live how we live, we're making great change, and we're just by living this way, we're beaming or transmitting, broadcasting, love and trying and working on ourselves and connecting more to the soul. That all helps. I feel like the light workers, way showers, the ones that are out of extremes of polarity, the ones that are blaming and shaming and in the extremes of polarity, I don't care how many books you sell or how many followers, subscribers, or whatever, New York, or the best and all white, vegan, doesn't matter. The universe
you're still caught in that paradigm. I see what you're saying.
Consciousness is an inside thing. The universe goes by the vibration. What's the intent, the motivation, and the overall, not the fleeting vibrational frequency, but the overall vibrational frequency and way that you're living. That's what makes the change. So, and that's another thing, that's old paradigm. So you're going to see a lot falling away of people that are supposed to be the authority or supposed to be spiritual teachers or supposed to be this, are going to start being seen for what they are, which is all of us. We have trauma and wounding. We're working through things as well. So it's going to be some, breaking down of the ivory
levelizing
tower.
of the playing field kind of thing.
Yes, going back to that. And so you're going to see, especially also a lot of women and mothers, specifically mothers, because there is going to be a lot of changes educationally. You're going to see more, not just homeschooling, but parents getting together, and especially women. There's something about mothers. It almost reminds me like Mothers Against Drunk Drivers kind of thing, where they decide to create almost like a charter school. It's going to have a different name, where they're teaching differently. And part of that is because of the mandates and things that are going on, but also because what's been shown is the mask has come off of our educational system. And a lot of systems, like, wow, they're really not learning that much, or wow, our kids are really overloaded, and that's really not healthy.
The system's it's outdated.
It's outdated, and it was running on a very surface program that really wasn't addressing individual needs. And that's what happens when we don't keep systems in check, even our own systems. Like, I remember one time telling a client of mine who was really, really tired, exhausted, drained, and they were like, well, I got to do yoga. I get up in the morning, I do yoga, and I'm going to go run 5 miles. And they were just on this thing. And I said, well, does that what you're, oh, I always do that. That's healthy. Not necessarily, because if you're exhausted, your body actually needs more rest. So it doesn't matter if you're doing something that's quote unquote good for it, it's still going to register as distress, as overstress, and what we call innervating. It's going to innervate your nervous system, which means exhaust or drain it. So
Because
we're
it's an
moving.
addiction, right? Or it sounds like
It's an addiction. It's a
of
well,
sorts.
it's a prescription that we people have bought that these things are good, so you always have to do it. And if you're not doing it, you're not whatever that role is you've
Healthy.
subscribed yourself. You're not the life coach. You're not the yoga person. You're not the heal. You're not the something.
I guess I
So,
said that because in my own life, I was that
you,
person that you're just talking about.
oh, are you okay?
A
Okay.
big time. There were many years where I was very structured in the way that I had to do my exercise and it had to go this way and I had to work out for 3 hours a day. And it wound me up with chronic fatigue for 2 years and having, several different viruses. And I was not in a good place, but it helped me actually. And you helped me with it quite a bit. And I'm very grateful for that. It
By
helped
the
me
way, it wasn't
see.
you. It's a woman. I guess, but a lot of people do that because it takes a lot to listen to our body, to listen to the messages from our gut, our heart,
Right, right.
the higher mind, extend into the higher self. It means that we have to step out of a routine, and that could be scary to the ego, because think about there's always this, a lot of times, I don't know all of these, but a lot of times there's this fear of, I'm not going to get back to my routine. That's going to become a
Yeah,
habit.
yeah, right.
And it really doesn't. I've never seen that. Oh, if I sleep in, that means, or I take a nap. That's not being productive. These are old things, again, thousands of years, and then really reinforced during the Industrial Revolution, the industrialization, and productivity, proletariat, times, and we're still operating off of that.
Mhm, mhm.
A friend of mine said the other day, and she's quite a bit younger than me, and she's like, I'm getting to bed, so I'm getting older because I'm cooking at home, and I'm in bed by 7. And I said, no, you're not getting older. You're now following the natural rhythm.
The circadian rhythms of your system, yeah, which
Yeah,
is
that's we have
way more in touch with
sunrise.
nature.
Yeah, sunrise,
Yeah.
sundown, dusk. That's the time to wind down, whether you're in bed or whatever you're doing. I said, yeah, we got away from that, and now with this, pandemic, it's caused a lot of people to, reevaluate what is, and get back to the natural rhythm. And that
Mm.
brings us to the point that we're moving into, which is going to be hard, it's challenging for the ego and for a lot of systems, more into the age, I would say, of the creator economy, collaboration, cooperation, community. I call them the COs, cooperation, more synergistic relationships, synchronistic timing, you know, more synchronistic timing. Still will have literal time or, regular time, chronos by Saturn if you're looking astrologically, but more by event, awareness, intent, motivation, and consciousness, more by inspiration to inspired action. And so that I feel like, if you want to call it the steering committee of the world, but the group that is behind the presidential structure or governmental structures in the biggies, in the big power structures, economic power structures. I mean, anybody thinks the president, they're figureheads. So right now, it doesn't matter who's in office, the same agenda is happening. And if you really
Mhm.
look, you can see that even with past presidents that people thought were so helpful. In a lot of ways, they weren't. So, and people know that, lobbyists. But there are those that also control the lobbyists. So they don't know yet quite yet. There's definitely an agenda and a plan of how to monetize this. So we're in this kind of gap because more will be automated, whether you want to call it from AI, AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, robotics. That's coming. That is part of this age, and it is really going to eventually free everybody up. So there's going to be a long, especially between now and 2050, there's a lot of shifts, changes, systematic changes of how we're going to live and have this type of exchange in the world, for goods and services, especially. That's going to be really called in. And so we're in a little bit of the last gasp of the old paradigm, the old matrix, the old design of consuming. The consumption, the taking in and spitting out, taking in, spitting out, which doesn't allow for a lot of creativity. It allows only for a small group to be creative, and then the rest are in service to or keep that going, which can be fine, but it began to be at the detriment of the health, the wellness, well-being of the individual, and therefore the society. I mean, you can see that in the drugs and the checking out. Eventually, where we're going to, and talking about that, because there's been a lot with like not just pharmaceuticals. All of that's going to rise. You're going to see the holistic. You're going to see the herbal, the pharmaceutical rising. See, those are two polarities, right? But what you're eventually going to see is the galactic or the quantum human, the soul-centered human, that is able to do more through their own healing ability, through hypnotherapy, Reiki, working with the subtle energy, mindset. Yes, there'll still be devices, medical devices. There'll still be, I'm not against pharmaceuticals where they're needed, or medications. But we don't want to have an over dependency on it, because, and regular research has shown, when people are over dependent in the beginning of a treatment, and I know this as a hypnotherapist, it's hard for the body then to kick in. So again, people are going to be at different places where medications would, be viable. But as a blanket, as a kind of a general, eventually things like microdosing, plant medicine, LSD, whatever, Oxycontin, is it Oxycontin? These things, uh, what's the other one? Ketamine, all these things that people are using. Some people using to check out, some people using to shift their consciousness or their awareness. Eventually, we won't need that, because it's us. So we're in this transition point. So you're going to see a lot more use of all of this until there becomes almost like the 100th monkey. There becomes this shift where people are waking to a next level of awareness and consciousness where, oh my God, I had this horrible headache and I just did some breathing and it's gone. Or somebody put their hands on me, or somebody sent me a message and I received the energy of it. So working more in that quantum field, that means accessing more of our quantum aspect of being through the subtle energy, whether you want to call it through the etheric, the astral, the akashic, the spirit realm. Now, we're not there yet. Why? Why hasn't this happened? Because you've heard me talk about a lot of the channeling, and I don't know how much we'll get in today. I've been seeing this kind of stuff for many years, and I've had confirmation, like from my one of my metaphysical teachers was married to the FBI director of California, and he confirmed some of the stuff of agenda stuff that I saw years ago, certain groups that I was privy to be a part of, actually Mormon and born again Christian groups, because they saw a lot of this
Oh, wow.
coming ahead of
Wow.
time with codes, barcodes, QR codes. They saw a lot of this with the money, and anyway, we can get into that if you want. So this has been, part of a plan, if you will. But like any plan, there's the unconscious or more conscious part, the middle conscious and less conscious. The higher octave. It's like someone singing a song, and someone may know the words, but maybe they're singing off key, and then someone else is singing that song and they're right on key. So we're going to have these parallel and multi-level experiences on this one planet. That's where we're going. So there is going to be more of this awakening where people are more telepathic. That's already happening now. People, the ability to remote view. Now, I'm not saying because I do that in session, but I'm talking about just as an everyday occurrence. Like, wonder what so and so's doing, or you think about them, and then you pick them up. I've had with my chiropractor, Dr. Kenji. I was telling you this, Stephen. He is so dialed in. I can feel when I'm 5, 6 blocks out, maybe sometimes a little more, half a mile's at half a mile, and then as I get close, I can feel his energy. I'm in it. I can feel when I'm going in his energy field, and I already feel the adjustment happening.
That's amazing.
If I'm a little down or depressed, I can't focus, I right away start feeling good and sometimes I'll even hear some of the positive affirmations that he says while he's adjusting. I'll hear certain things. I told him this too, but so so that living more from that space, is everybody going to? No, because again, we are a complex of vibrational frequencies and wavelengths, energy within ourselves and within everything. So my hair is a certain vibrational frequency, my skin, my neck, my teeth, everything fits together, but is not, it's from the same substance, but it's not exactly the same. So, the same substance as the trees outside, but I'm a different form. So I came through a different, we're a different configuration of that form, or that matrix that created the tree. But for a lot of people, they will be having this kind of awakening, and I've seen it on my podcast, Awakenings with Michelle Mache. I've had people call in that had no interest in spirituality, had no idea what it was. I can think of a few people. One of them was a born again Christian that all of a sudden started thinking about spirituality and found my podcast and just wanted some guidance and wanted and sure himself he was like, I thought it was the devil, but now that I've talked to you, you're not the devil, and this is good stuff. This is helping me. Another guest was on the show. Two different guests. One was Mormon. One was a born again Christian. They both started channeling just out of the blue. I'm thinking of a couple people that called in that worked corporate, knew nothing of this. All of a sudden, were able to, just out of the blue, some friends of theirs had headaches. One had like a stiff neck, and she just put her hand in it, the pain went away. The other one, the headache, the migraine went away. And they call in and they said, well, what's going on with me? And they search. I don't know how they find my podcast, because they always say we were looking for something, the answer, and then we found it. So you're going to see much more of this kind of spontaneous opening and awakening and to people's gifts. Now, why is this happening? Because they're encoded. It's encoded, just like the seed is encoded when to sprig, sprout, get a branch or whatever, the trunk, whatever. So this encoding, the awakening that's happening is happening in all different sectors. That's why my guides guided me to call the show Awakenings with Michelle Mache. Because I said, I don't like awakening. I went awakening. They're like, no, there's a lot of awakenings. Societal awakening, educational, governmental, health, individual, spiritual, all kinds of different kinds of awakenings. It's just the universe, the I am that I am, the all that is. If you think of it, it's all one big flower with a lot of different petals, is having what they call the new emerging consciousness is coming through to create the new paradigm, which paradigm is simply a system of thought, or, again, another designed matrix. And then from that, there is this new earth that is coming.
So then within the chaos, would you say within the chaos, which is what's happening right now, that there's actually maybe even more of an opportunity for awakening right now because of the kind of, butting up against each other's heads? There's a lot of energy in that, right?
Yes.
And so if we
out of chaos comes creation, and out of confusion comes new order. So if I clean out my closet, I take everything out, even though it's very orderly. I to take it out, it's going to be messy. It's going to be confusing, and I'm going to probably look and go, "Oh my God, I'm going to get rid of this. Oh, I didn't know I had this." So then there's a new order when I put it back in. Even if I put it in, I think I put it in exactly the same. It can't be. It never will be. The universe doesn't work on that type of repetition. There's always to keep something on the earth plane. It has to be a little off. Otherwise, like in samadhi, death, or samadhi, total oneness, it just goes. It's subsumed into all that is. This time of chaos is the time for creation. This is the time for those that hear the call, and that call, that soul call, can be little things, little like, do this, do that, or I want to do this, or I want to make a video, I want to do that. That's to follow that. Because we all have to have somewhere to go. The new emerging consciousness needs forms. Out of this transmutation, there's a transformation. So transformation happens after the transmutation. Transmutation is the energetic change. The transformation is the new form. So new books, new ways of seeing. Now, it's going to be by consciousness, by resonance. So it's not like, oh, I have to do A or B. I have to do a book. No, whatever you're doing is going to hold the vibrational frequency of the new emerging consciousness. If you've awakened to a certain level and your soul, getting soul aligned. So those people that are hearing this call, that's precisely what we need to do, because the new emerging consciousness, the new earth, doesn't get created by snapping fingers or magic wand or clicking our heels together in our shoes or blinking our eyes a few times, boom, and there it is. No, it happens by us believing
So
in
you're saying
ourselves.
if enough of us follow that, kind of like the 100th monkey thing you were talking about, it's not going to look like your chiropractor. I'm going to look different than your chiropractor. You're going to look different than me. But if we're all following that vibration, I guess, would you say that's the thing that will help us move towards this shift?
Yes, the urge. The shift is happening just in a lot of the shifting, the transition, the change. It's difficult and going to be more difficult. I mean, there's a lot of resistance to it, and there is a lot of issues around control and being controlled. However, if just on a small level people start doing more of what it is they really want to do and getting off of the hamster wheel or of consumption, invest in yourself. Classes, workshops, how to do this, how to do that. If you want your jewelry designer, you have an idea for an app. These are the things that the creative expression, the soul expression. Yes, if you have to, I had to buy lights, I have a new mic. I mean, yes, there are things that help you, but not just to consume. And there's going to be a lot more. You see it now since the pandemic. You see now there's a lot more ads about phones and devices and the next one you got to get. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You know what I'm saying? So getting out of that comparison and looking at others, what they have, instead of looking and saying, okay, what's my mark? What am I contributing to the whole, to the community, to the universe? What am I doing? It's really about self-expression and creativity, because that is the realm of the soul. The soul is all about variety and self-expression. It's not monotone or monochromatic. The soul would have you being a banker, an accountant, and a skateboarder.
I like that.
Yeah. Or a truck driver that eats a lot of meat and is a yogi or a ballerina. Okay. A football player that's a ballerina or loves the ballet. Whatever that's how, when you're living through the paradox of your life, then you know you're living more authentically, genuinely, which means you're living soul. The cabal, if you will, if you want to call it Bilderberg Group, steering committee, is trying to keep people pegged in these little holes, holes and squares. You're a square, you're a circle. And so you're going to see actually even more ramping up of peer pressure. People's quote unquote idols or icons. What are they doing? What are they saying? What do they look like? Because that was starting to dissipate. People were moving away from that. Now, at the same time where you see all that resistance and quote unquote opposition, you're also going to see new social media outlets, new platforms, new ways of connecting, and less on this hamster wheel of putting content out just to get it out. Because if I get it out, then I have more numbers, I have more subscribers, and I got to get it out. This energy right here is going to be more of a flow, which means it's going to put people more in touch with the gap, the void themselves. Because in order to create, to move into conscious creation, we have to get comfortable with the void. Things don't come in unless there's a void, unless there's space. And in the previous society, there's a lot of discomfort with space, with
Yeah,
the
big time.
void. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, just as you were saying that, I you were talking about Mr. Wheel, and I could feel my nervous system, being pretty amped up there, and I believe that's a reflection of what you said. It's the consumptive mentality that we're almost, I keep using the word addicted to this adrenalized way of being, and basically what you're saying, what's in motion, what wants to kind of impart itself into the consciousness here is this more kind of fluid, intuitive, receptive, and still kind of movement,
Yeah.
would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
In touch with our inner rhythm, and how does our inner rhythm interface with the universal and earth rhythm, that kind of, that timing. Once people start doing that, again, I go back to the gifts that start coming through, the soul gifts. I remember a few years ago, and I really, even before the pandemic, was being guided to slow down and just go deeper within in my path and process. And at the time, I was also taking care of Yoshi, my little fur baby that's on the other side now. I started hearing Om. First, I thought it was music, the background. And I started hearing this Om. And then I heard celestial sounds, just beautiful music. And it wasn't just when I was in the mountains, or in the desert. It was, when I was in the city. It was just all the time. I could hear this, or I'd pause and I would hear it. That hum of the earth. There is a sound, after vibration comes sound, and we are this sound. So I feel that more people are going to be having that experience. And there were people that called into my podcast that said that they had experienced some of that. Some people were experiencing ringing in the ears, different, and this happens when we're adjusting vibrationally. Some people, changes in food, sleep patterns, very disruptive right now. Or some people, uncharacteristic, maybe sleeping a lot where they normally don't, or they sleep a lot and then they can't. There's a lot of different, what we call somatics, body things, changes that are happening. And we have to remember that we are, just as the earth is changing, we're that quantum aspect of us is affecting the denser physical body to be more receptive to the vibrational frequency and energy of the new emerging consciousness. It's a much higher frequency, and we would burn ourselves out. So we're really in this acclimation time right now with the denser physical body to prepare it, and the mind and the mindset. That's, it's like preparing for a sporting event or something. There's things that you need to do with your body and food wise. And so I feel like if people need to look at that, and instead of rejecting what's happening, tune into their body and say, well, what are you needing right now for this individual and collective unfolding?
So
Gonna
it's like
see
a
a
deeper
lot.
level intimacy and faith, right?
Yeah, you're going
Intimacy
to
with
see a
self.
lot of that. You're going to see there's a whole group of people actually even drinking less, pot, substances, to get more, because those things do stay in the body a while. Alcohol, even with this whole pandemic, the guides had told me before, when they told me about this virus 4 or 5 years ago, um, not to have a lot of sugar. Still working on that. I've cut down. I do like my chocolate, but not to drink. That the drinking, so it was things that actually lower your immune system. They were telling me, And I kind of tried it out. I was like, even with one glass of wine, I felt like very like the next morning tired, lethargic,
Mhm.
and not great for estrogen dominance, as on a female level. Um, and there's no judgment. People do what they are going to do. There's no judgment. One isn't more spiritual or not, but it's about listening to the body and what's the message that you're getting of what's needed and necessary. That's a lot too about this part of this awakening. It's a lot about listening to your intuition, even with the health concerns, with what's going on in the world. Every time my guides, so many people have asked me, should I get the V? Should I get the V? Should I get the V? Um, I'm not, because I don't. That's unless something greatly changes. But my health. I say go to what you would normally do, and so I can't answer that. And the guides always said it was more about the tracking, the tracing, and what's coming up monetarily
Mm.
with the whole digital currency. Unfortunately, the V stuff opens the door with the papers and it's kind of in training people like a mass hypnosis. Unfortunately, a certain group of people. There will always be those that aren't. Um, and I would tell people, so they'd call in my show or my workshops, and I'm like, I can't answer that for you. That's a personal question. But what I can say, and what the guides have guided me for the last 10 years, teach people how to tune into their intuition, teach people how to connect to their body, teach people to be tuned into their intuition, teach people to trust their intuition, teach people to. So you're going to make the decision that is right for you. And that's
Seems to be
part.
in line with what you're saying, right? It sounds like the V is just another opportunity for us to really tune into ourselves and listen to what's true for ourselves. Like you're saying, versus getting into the I should or I shouldn't. It's an individual
Exactly. It's
opportunity
become
to.
one more thing to think that you're safe or you're going to get to heaven or Shambhala or
Right.
wherever if I do this. And of course, it's showing that it's not.
Yeah.
I know some people that have taken, they've been fine. I know some people that have taken it have not, they've had very adverse reactions.
Me
I'm
too.
very sensitive to medications, even certain herbal or vitamin supplements. So, I'm not doing that route. But again, yes, what you said, Stephen, it's another opportunity to. Is this about self responsibility? And again, it's not baby out with the bathwater. Yes, there are certain things that we do as a collective. I'm in the United States. I'm not going to be driving on the opposite side of the road, but just because I want to,
Mm.
or driving on the wrong side of the freeway. I think people have to, people like to go to these extremes examples. But a lot of what's happening and what got us in this kind of, I don't even want to say mess, but got us into this pattern of relating, living, and being is people checking out and not having self responsibility, not doing their own research. And I know it's cumbersome to do that a lot of times, but it's going to be more and more necessary because there's going to be a lot of conflicting information, especially some part of 2022 but 2023 especially. There's going to be a lot of different information, conflicting information. There's going to be a lot of people sorely disappointed because they followed the letter of the law, the mandate, the this and that, and then they're going to see where it led them. So there's going to be a lot up, and it's like we all have to learn to trust our intuition more and our body, and know ourselves better without judgment, but what is truly in alignment or right, for me, what is actually healthy, and find that out, in whatever way that you can, whatever research, whatever resources are at your fingertips, um, that's what people need to do.
Yeah, and that seems like the real opportunity. It seems like we're getting it in every aspect of life, and that this is just one where, right, the tendency can be to look at the authority and see what the authority wants us to do. But it sounds like from what you're saying, it's about getting in touch with the inner authority more and bringing that forth.
Yes, absolutely. And I do feel 2022 is going to give us the chance to do that more. I feel, I started this program, Soul Centered Living, and the guides really pushed me to have it. They said it needs to be from September to February. It's a 6-month program. And in fact, I was kind of lagging behind because I wanted to do a few more things with it. And then a few people signed up for it without me knowing. I was like, oh, I guess I got to start it now. But if you notice what happened, especially in November, and it's happening now in December, we're recording this, people started making different decisions or really noticing it is what it is. Oh, this is how things are going to be. So this is what I need to do. Or I can't stay in this job anymore or this relationship, or I can see where this is going down the road. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of this, or I can't. I need to make a different choice, a different decision. 2022 starts bringing those decisions into the forefront. It's also where a lot more people are going to come together, connect, come together collaboratively. You're going to see much more of the joining together, much more of the community focus as well. And it's about getting these kind of, I call them safe spots. We need to have safe spots where people can talk openly, where people can help each other. Some of my groups, my Patreon, Soul Awakening with Michelle, there's been people that have helped each other, and in my Soul Centered Living as well, that, oh, you do this, oh, I'll hire you, or will you help me with this, or people can speak more
Yeah,
freely.
I can attest to
Yeah, you
that.
have.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah, I mean from that group, yes.
oh, good,
I'm
good,
I'm
good.
working with somebody from that group, and it's like you said, when like minds come together, something or someone that you may not have known about or expected could actually end up helping you with where it is that you're going in your trajectory. So I see what
Yes,
you're
and
saying.
then the other thing is because we have, I mean, different religions, some Catholic, some Jewish, some, practicing, not just spiritual and metaphysical, Buddhist, or just different. We have some people that have had the V, some people that haven't, and there's no
Mhm.
judgment, but people are
Right.
able to share honestly their point of view without shaming. And I think that needs to be
It's so
so,
needed. It is
so
so
needed right
needed.
now without
Yeah.
the shame on either side.
Right. Right.
Um,
So
one
that
of the
there's
things I
understanding. It's like the St. Francis of Assisi thing, seeking
Yes,
more
and some
understanding.
people, in the group have some of the groups that I'm in have said because of my job I have to do this, and
Hmm.
they don't have another job or another avenue. That's it, and they have children or whatever. So it's how do we come together in a space like you were saying, this place of inner authority, because when you have true inner authority, that's the sovereignty. It's in the I Ching, it's hexagram 14. It's possession in great measure, that something can't be taken away from you. It's you possess it within you.
Hmm.
That's the soul. That's connected to your higher self, your soul. That's you connected to you. And what we have right now is a lot of people on the planet that aren't connected to their soul. They're just not. They're like, talk about, AI, robotic. They just are running on programs.
Hmm.
And now those programs are starting not to work, or
And
or
so
they're
people don't have a template as to what to do. Yeah,
they don't have a
I see.
design. They have templates. They
Right.
don't have an original design. They're
Hmm.
they're
Oh,
using tracing paper. So it's scary.
that is scary. So there's a lot of fear in a lot of ways, and yet I love where you're coming from. I just want to say, because even though there's a lot of fear, because there is, and I'll feel it myself, but I feel kind of enveloped in this a greater sense of purpose within all of what you're saying. Um, that there's some excitement in that. Strangely, there's excitement in, like, oh wow, okay, this is really a crazy time, but I have my piece that I want to contribute, and it seems important to maybe expand on that, because I think that sometimes within everything that's going on, even good information, people can look at and be like, "Oh my God," over focus on the fear of what's coming next, or important to know what's coming up next as maybe a heads up, but not to find ways to, as you say, to move from transforming fear into creativity, which you have an amazing CD on that, by the way, that I love.
Oh, yes, that would
Yeah,
be a good time for people to listen to that. Transforming fear into creativity, absolutely. And then the universal laws one. Thanks for Stephen.
right.
That's true.
Oh, it's awesome.
And the
Yeah,
thing is we're, that inner authority is our truth, is our soul. Yes, we can learn more and get more input, and there's experts that know more than us, but it's how we bring it back to us, not in a way of learning and being assisted, but not being enabled, not giving our power away and saying, well, it sounds good, but my body doesn't want this or doesn't like this, or I feel bad about this. I got a bad feeling about this, but I got to do it, or everybody's doing it, so I have to do it. Those types of everybody's doing it, that kind of, hypnosis, non-life enhancing hypnosis, that type of mass mind, reactive, is totally coming from that, you know, reptilian part of the brain. It's really, and the limbic, the emotions, and the reptilian part from ancient times. And that's very much up right now. And I know people are looking at a lot of like, what do I do to offstave this? And I would say connecting, obviously, dialogues, videos like this, getting upliftment, inspired, dealing with your emotions, dealing with your trauma, your fears, but not letting that stop you. Because we have that, that's going to be forever. I mean, you could be 90, 100 years old and still get triggered. It's just knowing that's not your consciousness. That's something that you experienced. And really using your gifts right now, your talents, stepping out through self expression, or what we call soul expression, through creativity, being a part of something more, and recognizing in your own empowerment that you're assisting by you living more authentically, more genuinely. That's what you're putting out into the world and into the universe. That's becoming a stronger and stronger vibrational frequency. So during a lot of and I talked about this in the visions. They didn't call it supply chain, but they said that there'd be a lot, product not on the shelves, and so there's going to be changes with what's available, or what we have.
that's happening now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that was part of it. Eventually, we are well, we're in this rude awakening, and a part of that is also a unification process, this unity, this coming together in oneness. Now that doesn't mean losing ourselves or individuated aspects, but it is more of this message of cooperation instead of opposition and fighting. Even though we see the fighting, metaphysically it's called harmony through conflict. So after enough conflict, the harmonizing principle comes through. It's like an argument. When you argue back and forth with someone or debate, and it can get really heated, and then you can go, well, I kind of see your point of view, or what are we going to do about this? So there's going to be a lot of situations for that kind of cooperation. It's like if you're in a work situation, or let's say you're living with someone, or it's family members, you're going to have to know some things you're going to walk away from, but some things it's going to be like, well, what's the solution? What's the mutual solution here? And this is why you're going to see a lot of different realities lived out through different communities, through different cities, through different states, as there becomes less and less of a centralized control. Because eventually what will happen, we won't have governments we'll have governance, but it'll be more through like tribes or committees, tribunals or committees.
oh wow, wow.
Oh yeah. With different heads from communities. We'll also have people that will be more off the grid, that are paying surcharges. That's one thing you're going to start seeing. It's going to be fees, like almost like tariffs,
Hmm.
or back in the feudal days. And that started right now with that V and all that brings, the tracking, this app, that app.
Yeah.
It's going to start free, and then it's going to be, less costly, probably things between $5 and $10. But when you think of things that are like that, of thousands or millions of people using something, that's a lot of income. So eventually, it's not going to be so much from the medical or medicine, the V's. It's going to be more from these apps and tracking and tracing and apps that give you, or papers, that give you an entree into something,
Mm,
whether
mm.
flying or driving with your car or using electricity for your electric car. There's going to be all these charges and surcharges because these founding father families that go way back that made money on the structures, those structures are breaking down. But even railways, how many railroads do we use, right? Cars. Oh, there's a lot of stuff that they can see that, just like in the one Native American tradition, they call look at things from 7 generations. This group is aware of that concept as well. It's not, they're not just doing for themselves, their husband, their wife, their spouse, their kids, but 7 generations. Like, what's the progeny? What's the legacy? Just like with the Constitution and the large corporations at Edison for electricity, it's like, how do we run this thing? So you're going to see changes in the economy. I'd say you're going to notice the bigger changes when the dollar is more devalued and gold and silver, and especially gold, comes into play.
Gold will be more valuable. That's what you're saying?
It's yes at some point, and commodities, especially water
Mm,
and food. Water is going to be big. That's a big investment. I was shown salinization. We're going to have
mm.
to desalinate because there's going to be more issues around
That makes sense.
water and,
Yeah,
and
that
being
makes a lot of
charged
sense.
more for water.
Mm, mm,
Households being charged more. So this is why some communities are going to say, well, we have our own. We're off the grid. We have our own water. We have our own electricity. But it's going to be very difficult to be completely off the grid. You'll still have to pay something to this general group, or to that city and or state. So you're going to see much more governance statewide. You also, what I was shown, there's going to be, I would call it like smart cities. There's a lot. I don't know how much time we have because I have, yeah,
What
there's so
about
much.
digital currency? Sorry to just
Well,
throw
yeah,
that
the
out there,
digital
but
currency, but you're going to see with the digital currency, we're in a middle phase. Eventually, there will be one digital currency that's like units, almost like a merit. You have to understand there is an agenda to be completely cashless
I
and
can
go
see that.
digital. What I have been shown, it's not the currency that's here now. I think what I'm hearing, you can make short term big money from that, but eventually these will be phased out
Mm,
because the digital currency right now is based on fiat money. It's based on dollars.
mhm. And if that collapses, then, or if it is
Well,
less valued,
going to be phased out. The dollar goes down, gold is, because our dollar is not backed by gold any longer. Gold goes up, and tangible things like homes, housing, property, those are good investments. Although I do see people shuffling again and moving, and I feel people that bought 2 and 3 homes or live in the city and then got scared and moved to the country, they're going to be selling those homes. So I do feel like it's going to start in 2022. You're going to see homes go surplus, which will make the home prices go down. You're going to see much
mm,
more surplus. You're going to also see
everywhere, you see that happening everywhere.
most places, it's pockets. That's what's hard with predictions or what I've seen in the visions I've been given. But for the most part, where there was a lot of buying up, you're going to see people getting rid of and kind of paring down and deciding. Now, mind you, this is probably next 3 to 5 years, where next year there's a lot of decisions of where and how people want to live, or what they feel connected to, what type of person or situation they feel more of a resonance with. And that's also starting a template. Everything again begins to create this design of what people will tolerate or put up with, or how people believe. Because eventually there's going to be these smart cities, I guess you would call it that. I saw this vision, and then this client of mine on Patreon, this Patreon, messaged me and said somebody else had seen it called smart cities. But when I channeled it, I didn't hear the word smart city. I just saw these cities that were highly technolized,
Mm.
technocrat, very, which I love technology, but it's
Like
too,
AI cars and stuff like that,
yes, and food that's like not the, well, farm food, definitely
Like the GMO.
GMO and
Oh,
made in a
oh, wow,
petri dish.
wow, wow, wow.
There'll be
Okay.
there's going to be a whole different game, and then there's going to be an outlying area. But some of those people will pay high premium to have certain real food come in, like regular fit. But see, there's going to be a lot of disruption in our natural resources, our natural foods, game, wildlife. There's a lot going to be happening with, the water.
So will
We've
there
got
be
to,
places that we could go that will have better access to that, or organic foods than
yes, well, that's
others?
going to be a choice. Almost, if you see, when I saw it, it almost looked like the Wizard of Oz big buildings, like skyscrapers, taller
Mm.
buildings, with almost like a monorail through it, and
Wow.
these little, um, almost like a flying. What are those? Oh,
Oh, you're talking like a
when people get it in,
I,
they
I
press
know what you're
forward.
talking about. I know exactly what you're talking
I
about. I
can't
can't
think of
think
what
of
it's called right now. I can
what it's
see
called
it,
right now either. Yeah.
which is interesting because I used to see those when I was a child because I knew, as a star seed, and I had a lot of visions as a
Like a
child.
drone type thing?
No, you stand on it like a hover, and you stand on it, and you segue,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but in the sky. Now, I had those dreams when I was a child, and then I had them a few years ago, and then I don't know, about a month ago, I was channel switching, and they already have those at some military base. They use them to get around.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
there'll
creepy.
be, it's fantastic. I mean, if I could draw or paint the visions that I have seen and the way people live. Now, there will be people that are very much, and no judgment, but they're very much going to be into this kind of, the glasses with the, interface to the computer, to the internet, virtual reality, not just goggles. There's going to be things implanted in people. Um, so there are people that are very excited about that. So again, we're going to have these different realities, parallel, worlds where they connect. This is why there's not going to be as much with the federal government. That definitely is the power be decentralized and have more of these heads that come together, and much
In the
more like a.
next in the next like 5, 10 years, will
Yes,
that be happening?
absolutely, absolutely. By
Wow. Okay.
2050, we're in a whole new world, a whole new
Wow.
world that we can't even. And even I would say, but between 2023, that's when I see quantum changes.
Wow.
2023 to
So that's
2025.
close. I mean, that's wow. That's a year or two away.
Yeah. So I would say people have asked me about this cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, which I love Bitcoin. I studied that when it came out, 2009. I used to watch Kaiser Report on RT.com. Now, I'm jealous, as this is the psychic channel part and the visions, that there's going to be this one current that I feel it's in the works.
Hmm.
Um, it's not completely worked out by merit. It's going to be because everything is going to be unfortunately known if you're completely in the system. There will be some people on the side, fringe, that won't be completely in it, but everything will be known. I mean, all your history, your medical, everything there, everything's deducted. So what I've most shown two things. I was seeing this income, a general income that people got that, didn't, especially that their job was taken over by automation or it became extinct. There would be this basic income that they receive. Right now, we're in transition phase. So whatever is you pay dollars, pesos, whatever pounds, whatever you pay for with that, that's transition because eventually there will not be hard paper money, coin and paper money.
Wow. Wow. But the gold, didn't you say the gold would
That's when you're going to see the big change, because that gold has to be gotten out from, hidden from the war, has to be brought back in
Oh,
circulation.
wow. Wow.
So in order that gold has to come now. I just say, because I kept asking the guides, I'm like, okay, you see this other digital currency or cryptocurrency, and I feel it's going to be called something else. It's almost like a passport or a wallet, but unfortunately, then you're that it's also going to cause issues when people want to travel, like how much,
So everything is connected to that.
everything, and how much,
Wow.
because if you go to travel someplace and you don't have enough money to sustain yourself, they're going to be like, oh, how come you have all this money, or how come you don't have this money? Yeah, every if you're
Wow.
totally in that system, yes.
Wow.
If you're not in the short term, there will be some limitation. But this is because people are going to be going for it. See, that's the problem. It's us. It's people not thinking ahead. Not only where is this leading me, but what kind of life if I'm leading for my child? The
Right.
monitoring that's going to be going on through cameras and drones, and it's just a lot.
And it's already starting. I mean, it's happening, and you can see a lot happening in Australia right now, and even here in the United States, they're starting to do more of that.
So I feel with the Bitcoin, what will happen, and I don't know if maybe the other Ethereum is, that the people, I could be wrong. I've been tested 97, 98% accurate. So I could be wrong. But what I was shown in these visions was something else. And then when I looked at it, the message that I kept getting was, because Bitcoin is still based on money. You have to have money, you know, fiat money, currency to buy that, or Ethereum, any of these. So it's still based on that old system, the old paradigm. And I did see Bitcoin going down. Now, it's been very fluctuating. This is why I say it's a good thing to get in and get out, but people that think that they're going to do really well by 2030, I don't see that. Is I feel the government is going to come in and highly regulate it, which I made those predictions months ago on Patreon, and that paid out. I got a little message from BitChute. We need help. They're doing this and that to Bitcoin. People, California isn't using it as much. There's a lot of Hawaii, I think. I don't know if New Jersey, New York. Anyway, there's some restrictions. Also, some people that are doing being the what is it, the exchange, doing the exchange, are now being taxed and or fined for not having business licenses. So the government is going to start encroaching and coming in and regulating more and more and more. I feel ultimately what will end up happening is people that have that type of digital currency or cryptocurrency will be grandfathered in and be able to exchange it for a certain rate, not the rate that they think that they have now.
Mm.
Now, and the common sense part of me says, well, that makes sense. Usually spiritual, I mean, why would the government do that? Even if they're investing, and not all, I know some banks are investing, but I would say short term, because to have multiple, I know a lot of people want this multiple currency. That's just not in the big vision. I could be wrong, but the visions that I've received 4 and 5 years ago, and in the 90s and in the late 80s, that was not the plan. So the plan is, you know, we have one new group, new world group servers, one group, but there's also the new world, which is under one, which it is anyway, because we're global, we're all interconnected. We can see that now. That's why the agenda with the panty, you
And
know.
so, like what you were saying, there'll be some people that can be a little bit off grid, and yet those people who aren't a part of the system, kind of similar to the V, aren't going to have certain rights.
In the beginning, but it will be things that you don't, and on some level, again, there's adaptability, but also what's really important to you. How do you really want to live?
Hmm.
My metaphysical teacher, Rach, her ex-husband, Ted Gunderson, because I shared with him a lot of my visions and channelings, and so did she, and then she would tell me what he would say, or I had conversations. And he told me, he said, you're going to know that the change, you'll see the change happening, the agenda, the new world, one world. when they take down the economy, especially the United States. In order for this agenda to happen, the United States has to be taken down a few
And when do
pegs.
you
That's
think that'll happen in the
it's
next?
happening now.
Yeah, look
Look
at
at
that.
businesses, restaurants, people. So everything, because it is coming all from the one, all that is, it always has, there's an upside, but there's some downsides. And we can mitigate the downsides that come from the fear, the greed, the over control, from the invader dominator culture in small steps, in small ways of connecting to our inner authority and thinking ahead. Do I really want to do this, or how much of this do I really want to do? See, they couldn't do this agenda before. They tried it in the 80s with beginning with the barcode and get people, there wasn't enough of the technology and people weren't as
Compliant.
seemingly seamless with the technology and wanting the convenience of it. And there's a different type of consciousness with a lot of the people that go for this. They're not really connected to their soul. It doesn't even matter if they're doing yoga or whatever they're doing. It doesn't matter. They're in, it's a different level of a different type of consciousness that it's funneled very group, and it's very easy to manipulate because they're not really connected to their inner authority. Even, it doesn't matter how much money they have or how much acclaim or fame or financial freedom to do whatever they want, or how brainy they are with creating, digital world or apps or technology. The spiritual connection isn't there. They're trying to get it, some of them, but it's just a different formatting. And my sense is that's because it would take that type of individual to allow something like this to happen. I
Mm.
think I was listening to something, and I'm hoping to get this guy on my podcast. I think it's Matthias Desmond, Des, from Belgium. And he talks about this mass hypnosis, and he brought a great statistic. He said it's usually about 40 to 44% that are hypnotized, that go along with the agenda, that are easily manipulated. And then there's those that are in the middle that could go either way. And then there's the 30% that are not. So it's, in a sense, those 30% are the ones that are seeing the bigger vision. That's very inclusive. That's very community and collaborative. That isn't only me, me, me. It's we. It's the creator culture. Even though it might take a little bit longer or you have a little less, there's like more slices in the pie, so you have to make more pie. It's
And
and
for
so
the
that's
30%, we'll have places where we can congregate. And
yes, but
obviously,
more importantly, by what we do, what we think, what we act upon, and how we live, we're going to be affecting the whole. And then what's going to happen as you see much more protests, rioting, domestic terrorism, all of it
and
happening.
there'll be more of that, it seems
Yes,
like,
you
yeah.
saw. I told you my visions before. Some of them, the tanks and all of that,
Yeah.
the
I
curfews.
saw I saw tanks last year, so there'll be more of that.
There's more of that, and then a lot of it I saw was in the light fatigues, which was the, what is that called? The light fatigue people with the Hummers. They were
Oh,
guarding,
oh
but
wow.
there's
So
also the tanks. So you're going to see much more, and
in the
some of it,
bigger cities,
yeah,
more.
some of it is more uprising with um, displaced people, homeless, non-housed,
Uh-huh.
that could perhaps have some, mental challenges, mental illness, and some that are just angry or drug. You're going to start seeing a lot in the streets, and we do see this now happening, which I did predict. People,
I'm seeing it
robberies.
now. I'm seeing it now, and I'm hearing
Yes, it's
about it
already
now.
starting to happen.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, and then you're going to. That's why you're going to see more of the patrolling and militia, and sometimes curfews happening, because it's the pitting against for this civil unrest to civil war. It's not going to be like in the 1800s, but it is people to people, the have and have nots. It's not so racial. I know a lot of people want it to be racial, but it's beyond that, because it's going to be more by resonance, which is beyond race, religion. That is the big one of the big lessons also of this next level of awakening is to open our heart and to follow and be guided by the resonance, what resonates most, not by what you see on the outside. I had a caller call in the other day, about 3 weeks ago, on my podcast, near in tears, had been crying, so you could still hear, and said, "Where are my people? The spiritual community. I feel shunned by them or shamed. I didn't get the V, and I don't know who to talk." And I thought certain spiritual teachers, they talked about love and oneness, and I said, it's going to be from people that may not look like you or may not be quote unquote spiritual or metaphysical. So we have to learn to trust our vibes, the resonance, not by what's the car someone has, where they live, color of their skin, religion, do they do yoga, are they vegan? You a vegan person may be greatly helped by the carnivore meat eater, a plant-based person, maybe, and I say this lightly to throw it out, but if you look how much we've got ourselves in these little boxes. And before all this, people could pose, That's why on my podcast and with my clients, I never say that I don't need this. No, I keep it humble, because if we're on the planet, we have stuff.
That's
I
real,
remember,
and I appreciate that, because that's what's real.
that's why certain things I don't talk about. Or I remember years ago going to see somebody, and I did know them behind the scenes. I did some work with them, and on the same stage, I did some speaking engagements and stuff. But they had all this stuff about soulmates and how to have the best relationship. They were married, best relationship, and all these relationship retreats and seminars, and they were a major cheater.
Wow, really?
Yeah, now they're divorced. Yeah, horrible,
Wow.
horrible. And with young women, but I say this not out of judgment, because I had some people that I had to help that had got kind of connected with this person. And I said, no, it's not that they're doing that. It's just don't teach about it.
Mm. Mm.
Be real, because people will accept you, even if, especially if you're at a certain level, no matter what you tell them, either they're not going to believe it, or they're going to say, hey, well, you're trying and you're doing okay. So that I respect. But see, we're
Yeah.
moving more into that space right now, especially to become more telepathic. More is going to be, revealed. More is just going to be how we show up. And that is our resonance. That is our connection.
And that's our protection too. It's kind of sounds like too. So within all the fear and the civil unrest, and I know there's people like, well, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And what I'm getting from this is the doing comes from following this kind of line of energy, this kind of connection to self and to soul, and what's really moving us. And because it's new, there's no kind of roadmap for it, right?
No, no roadmap. It's all the soul. Eventually, what I was told, and I do love the ego, the healthy ego. In fact, in hypnotherapy, we have ego building, healthy ego processes, which is inner authority. But eventually, that function of the mind will be gone. We won't need that level of fight or flight protection, that kind of knee jerk, because our awareness will be different. And the telepathic, the remote viewing, the resonance, trusting. I always use the example of you're walking down the street. I used to have that happen when I was walking Yoshi, and she would already feel the energy of a dog that was unstable or could be attacked, and would just move away. Or maybe I would see something up the road that I don't want to be a part of, and we'd cross the street, the leash, cross the street. But there are
Right,
people
dogs just feel the vibe of it right away.
yes, but there are
Yeah.
people that don't do that, that go, well, I don't have to cross it, or there's why am I thinking that there, and then they get caught, get caught in traffic because they didn't listen, or there's somebody mentally unstable up the road screaming and yelling, or people having an argument. Okay, maybe you didn't get hurt, but you need to go into that. So there's a lot more about trusting. That's why there's so much work about on the body right now, coming up for the body and health and healing, is like trusting our inner knowing through the body, our body wisdom, our flashes, our our higher self, that part of us. So connecting more to the soul, we live from a higher vibrational frequency. We live from the higher or highest self that's possible. And yes, we do things that are healthy for the ego that wants to protect us. But when there's less separation, that idea and that concept and belief of separation, what do we need to be protected from?
Mm, I
So
like that.
we develop the ego as protection from the other, whatever that other is. Warning, warning. So yeah, that nervous system to relax, to be in concert with everything and everyone, with the interconnectedness. Living that way more and more, the gifts come out more. The
And we
intuition,
engage
more
we engage
psychic.
the faith, right? It's really a leap of faith and embodying faith, and so that we can actually live more in a place of all is well. Versus, I love that you said that there isn't protection from that place. That was great. I hear
No,
that.
and then there's living miracle after miracle, divine intervention. You're living in partnership with yourself, with the quantum aspect of you. The local you is living with the non-local mind, a local mind. Quantum, the denser reality, the dense physical body to the subtle energy. It's those parts have been split or cut off, and then that brings fear because if we have to rely on the small mind and brain, which can only handle 7.8 bits of information, an old flash drive from the 90s. That's all that we can process. That's why when we get stressed or we're in distress or we're overwhelmed, our mind starts shutting off. We forget where we put our keys. We're and I have sometimes clients, especially with hypnotherapy clients, I'll be like, I guess I'm just getting everybody go. And this is again mainstream consciousness, I guess I'm getting older, and I'm like, no,
Yeah, no,
no,
I
no, no.
hear that.
I keep
Right.
forgetting. I forgot my key. I left it in the car, and then I brought the. No, I go. No, you're stressed. You're juggling so much right now. The mind can't handle anymore. It's going no. That's where meditation comes in. Getting into that meditative state, breath work, yoga, all those tools that help us align, especially meditation or attunement or alignment meditation, just getting in to that meditative state, that aspect of our consciousness to get out of the local mind, the little part, and extend or expand into the infinite, the creative, infinite, innate intelligence. That's where solutions come from. That's where inventions, that's where innovations come from. That's where the ahas come from. So we're going to be living more and more and more from that. And also have the ability to tap into that. That's why on my meditation book and CD, they're all short attunement meditations to just get into to align into that access point.
It's like a chiropractic adjustment into the soul.
Yes, exactly. I
Yeah.
love that, Stephen. Yes. So
But
yeah,
I feel like that's this whole conversation. You've enveloped us in a higher perspective, and I can feel that literally since the moment we've been talking, which I so appreciate because it clears the fear. It doesn't mean again there's stuff that's not going to happen, but it all feels like this kind of obstacles to opportunity to greater connection within,
absolutely.
yeah, within whatever's coming up. Like we have this greater opportunity to become more connected to our purpose and more connected to like taking this place to a an even greater place to live.
Yes, and if we also know that there can be again two points of view, two parallel reasons why things are happening, but ultimately unification, love, the higher principle, the unifying principle wins out. What's most life enhancing? And that's in all of nature. So the lower octave will play out. I mean, some of this was definitely planned, something was enhanced, sprayed, given, passed on. But then in my meditation, I always thought, well, I wondered how is this going to happen? Because all the visions that I saw, and there's other people that had similar visions, I always wondered, how do we have this oneness? How do we have this new world group, order? How do we have this, international interconnect? How does this happen? because it can't happen bit by bit. It has to be things that affect everything and everyone. So, yeah, there are downsides to this. Gas. I remember having visions in the late 80s and 90s that when I was in my travels and in Europe and different places where I was studying, I met a few people that had these same visions. And one of them was one of my metaphysical teachers, Rach, and then later, dear, dear friend, of people just walking and leaving buildings, storefronts, and cars on the side of the road. So are there going to be shortages, gas shortages, food? Yes. Water? Yes, 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 yes. But we also have to remember that the divine mind, the innate infinite intelligence of the all that is, God, that God is growing, is learning and developing. It's not that energy field of creation is not stagnant. It's one source, but that through that one source, it's an infinite. Always the possibilities come through, the potential and the possibilities, the inventions and innovations. They will again. And no matter how much VR, AR, AI there is, consciousness is always ahead. We can't get in front of consciousness.
I
It
love that.
creates everything. Yeah, because I had someone the other day. I was shopping at Whole Foods in the sky. And I don't know, we were saying something back and forth, and he said, "Yeah, everything's, you know, technology." And he was young. I don't know, like 19 to 22, something like that. And I said, "Don't worry. Consciousness always trumps everything." I go, everything comes from consciousness. I go, where do you think the inventions and the innovations come from? Technology. Everything else, everything has consciousness. This mic does, my computer, everything has a level of consciousness. But the computer doesn't have the ability to, and it won't, because it's not alive in that sense. With the life force animating energy, it needs us to animate it. We're the only species that has reflecting consciousness. We can reflect back on what we did and change things. All other species, it has it through biochemical or through the adaptive genealogy, right? In the next genes, like the 100th monkey, the next, it doesn't sit down and try to figure a way. It just happens. Where does that happen from? From the energetic matrix of the all that is. So anyway, I told this guy, and I said, he goes, "Oh God, I'm so glad to hear that." And I said, he goes, "But it makes sense." I go, "Yes." I go, "Because everything comes from consciousness, from source energies. You have to be able to tap into that." And as smart and brilliant and programmed as any AI could be, it's artificial intelligence. Just like artificial light is not the same as sunlight. I love this light is helping me. There's no light, very little natural light coming in from my windows because it's been raining. So yeah, I love the artificial light. And it comes from electricity, but electricity comes from the lumens, come from nature, and the biggest and brightest light is the sun. So yeah, we're this natural aspect of us. We're going to be tapping in more and more into the luminaries, into the planetary energy, and seeing the interconnected. That we're an aspect. They're the quantum aspect of us. And so when we live more like this, there's less and less fear. Now we all get fearful. I get fearful, but I have people that I call. Maybe I watch a video, or I do a reading for myself, or a book, or I journal, or get a session, go for a walk, bike ride, do something to process. That's always going to be an aspect of us, no matter how much we know or how much I see, or any channel or reader sees. We still have that part of us, and we have to know where to go to connect in to get the ultimate truth. Yes, there's lower level truths about laws and mandates, things that aren't fair. Yes, or they're controlling. The cabal, government, whatever, all of it. Yeah, that's true. But there's a higher truth. What are you doing day to day on an individual level? Are you buying into it? It reminds me years ago, I had, well, a really great friend of mine had family that was in the concentration camps, Auschwitz and different ones. And through her, I met some people um, that had as well. And for a period of time, this old time, 70, 80, 90-year old, and they all said, because I can't think of anything worse, that in prison. I mean, but, everything that those people went through, just horrible. But boy, did they come out snappy and inspired. And I'm like, how? One woman became this amazing jewelry designer, and she said that helped me heal. And they all said they didn't get in here. I wrote poetry in my mind. I read the Torah in my mind. I wrote poetry in the dirt and then brushed it away because if they would see that they were writing, they could get in, trouble.
But that's
Um,
amazing.
so
Wow,
we have
that
to
somebody
say, what are we
go
giving?
through that and be that strong.
But that's where we all need to be right now. What are we putting in here? What are we giving over? What are we consuming? What are we buying into our mind and into our body? And I get that it's scary. That's why I limit how much information I take. I love people like you. There's quite a few friends and clients that will email me or text me confirmations of the things that I've predicted and the visions I've received. And I do appreciate that. And then at the odd time,
Well, you've been spot on about everything.
yeah,
I mean, you have
TV,
spot
then I'll
on.
get confirmation, but I don't stay with it. And if I start to get affected, like, oh God, then I right away get some spiritual sustenance in, some insight, some inspiration, some upliftment, the overarching truth. Because yeah, it's going to be bad if we're going to look at good and bad. It's going to be non-life in hand. It's going to be scary. There's a lot of things that it's going to be, but it's also going to be good. It's also going to be very creative and loving and awe-inspiring and connect people more to their soul and their soul's purpose and soul expression and creativity and to come together. And there is something on the other side of this. This is what I think people have to. We're in like the middle. There's something on the other side, whether we see it in our lifetime, but what we're leaving, the legacy that we're leaving. This is the time to change from the 8,000 plus years. And you can see it play out. Just look in your history books or Google it. You'll see the exact same thing: fighting, government fighting, people being enslaved. That's not. It didn't happen 200 years ago. That's what people want you to believe. They want you to get caught up in the color. It's not about color. It's not about. It's about power over and over under power. It's about the invader dominator aspect. So you look back. Even the Olympics, and that's having less draw. I mean, I love sports. I think it's great, but you're seeing now, especially with concussions or how people play, especially children, you're starting to see changes because it also came with a lot of hazing. And you look at that in the ancient Roman times. Again, power over under. I'm bigger football player and I'm punching, a lot of locker room. I had brothers in sports or one, and I saw it. And I had got a lot of guy friends. I saw the hazing. And in sororities, I was in a sorority for a minute until they told me that I couldn't eat with my other friends. If I got in the sorority, which I was a shoe in, I had to eat all the time with them. And I'm like, no. I like to eat with whomever, all my buddies, my surfer friends, my stoner for everybody. My academic, I don't want to be limited. Um, so, they're just trying to put into this group or make it in such a limited capacity to keep it on the surface. That's been the agenda. It's that power overpower again, the invader dominator culture, being dominated, invaded. But what's the small thing that you can do? Even if you see the game and it has to play out, there's certain things you can and cannot do because where you spend your time, your energy, your money, that's what's going to register. I think I had shared with you at one point that a doctor in the White House that I worked with was doing, and this was like in mid 90s. A friend of mine had a referral company, still does actually, and I got referred to this doctor. I didn't know who it was. Actually, I didn't even know it was a doctor at the time. I got referred to this client to do energy work. She had acupuncture, massage, energy work. I did bioenergy alignment, and he chose me. So I went to the, and I didn't know anything. I don't keep up on stuff. I went to the hotel, his suite, worked on him, and I won't say who it is, but I still have their card because he asked me to come to work with the government because they have people like me, psychics, mediums, remote viewers, all that, and healing. And he told me because some symptoms that he had greatly went away from some pretty bad, debilitating diseases. And I didn't know. Thank goodness I didn't know because I just came in very humble and just loving what I do. And he told me straight out, he said, I was going to debunk you. And I was like, what? Oh, you don't know who I am. Turns out he was the keynote speaker. And turns out that every year there's a medical something, big medical conference. It has a special name, very professional. I had no clue. And he said, oh, we were going to debunk you because I thought that was BS, but this is gone, this is gone, this is gone. I can't believe it. No medicine got rid of this, no this. And one of the things was pins and needles that couldn't be gotten rid of. And I remember him saying that.
Oh, you mean like his nerves?
Yeah, on the bottom from, I guess,
Oh, wow.
diabetes or something. And, pain he learned to live with. And then other things. So we had this conversation and we talked about herbs and stuff. And he's like, yeah, we want to take, and he told me back then, this was in the 90s. So that gives you an idea where we are now. He said, we're losing billions of dollars. Because of course the government invests in this pharmaceutical company or gives them the loan, and then it's paid back through, for the patents. It's paid back through the vaccine. So they both are getting money, making money. So
This is obviously going on again right now.
But he told me back then, we're losing billions of dollars because people like you. That's exactly what he told me. And he said, people are going to the health food store. He goes, that's why we're trying to regulate it. They're going to the health food
Wow.
store and getting,
Wow.
instead of the pharmaceuticals. So that tells you
Wow.
a little bit, comment why we are
And
where
that
we
was
are.
back then. That was the 90s. Wow.
And 95, 96. So he asked me, we had a long conversation, and I said, because he said, I want you to come and train our doctors. And he knew I was psychic, and I went into everything that I did. And he said, I believe you, because he goes, I thought this was all BS and was going to debunk, really. And he was from the White House. So I was like, you know, and he said, I want you, we have a group of people, 40, that are working with us governmentally. I want to bring you on board. I want to hire you. No, I don't know. And then he called this woman that was had brought on board, this acupuncturist, and funny, she was a little leery of me, trying to get me to come on board. And I finally said, well, I'll just take your card and let me think about it. And I'll email you, which I did email him and say, I can't at this time, and I don't know what reason I gave. But he'd already said, because when I said, why can't you have people going to Western doctors, allopathic doctors, and also holistic? I go, we're holistic. We work, adjunct. We work with you. We're complementary medicine. And he said, no, 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 no. I'd rather have you, or we would rather have you, because he said there was a whole panel or whole committee. We would rather have you come train them. And I said,
Wow.
well, I said,
Wow.
and I pushed it. But I said, that's not the model we're going for, because they're good. Your doctors, regular doctors, Western is good with what they do. Because I tried to tell him also, you can't really isolate the herb. I said, you have to use it synergistically. And I said, even about vitamins. So I explained a lot to him about how those things work, that you can't just make it into a pill. It's not like white willow bark. I said, you have to use the whole plant. There's a different one. So he said, well, our plan is to get this kind of stuff made into pharmaceutical medicine, to find the active ingredient. And he goes, that's our agenda. He goes, we have to do something because we're losing too much money. Billions of dollars, he
Wow.
told me back then.
Wow. Wow.
So that's also in this new age paradigm. This Aquarian energy has a lot to do with technology, devices, medicines, higher level medicines. Even if we look at, the Piscean aspect, I won't get too much into astrology, but Neptune, Pisces. Um, but again, this is here, but the overall arching is much different because we have these capabilities within us, within our body mind system. We're going to be using more of our brain. That 90% that's just kind of sitting there. It's telling you it's gonna because the whole idea is that we have this technology. Even like the healing I did with him, I had no devices. It was just channeling healing light energy and my
Mm-hmm.
intention.
Hmm.
So we all have that capability now in this new paradigm in the new earth. It's going to be living more and more and more from that. And as you know, any time on this earth plane, when you focus a lot on something, it gets stronger, it gets reinforced, and
Hmm.
it radiates out to more and more people. This is why this could not happen before what's where we're going. We cannot manifest something on this earth plane unless there's enough resonant vibrational frequency. This is why I've been talking about this and doing these channelings for many, many years. People just weren't that interested, about the soul and soul design and what this means and the coming changes. Now more people are ready, partly because of what happened, what's been going on the last 2 years. That brought more of a rude awakening. But people were already starting to ask questions. What's the soul? And you see Kia Soul or the soul of the nation. There's all these books about soul or the soul of business or that person has a lot of soul or connect, so it's the timing. That's the universe. The quantum aspect of us speaks through people, devices, topics, speaks through the media, the mainstream media. Mainstream media isn't bad. I know it gets a rap. I mean, they just get sheet. They just don't, a lot of them don't question. Some start to and then they move on. But they get press releases and they just read those. It's like they aren't doing, most of them, research. They're just getting a press release and then reading that on the teleprompter. And so it's like, but the messaging can change what comes through the mainstream media as we change, as our voice, our message gets stronger. And I say the overarching, you know, the unity consciousness, as that gets out more, just like fashion or anything else, it gets poo pooed and then all of a sudden it becomes the thing, the main thing, you know. No one wanted to talk about meditation or yoga. Now everybody talk yoga,
I love
mindfulness.
that because I was just gonna say I love that because it takes it out of the left right, this
Yes.
person's wrong, that person's right kind of paradigm. It seems as
Yes.
though those people are just reflections of the consciousness. And when the consciousness changes, as you say, that just kind of falls away, right?
Yes. Stephen, brilliant, brilliant point. Which means we will not have those people in leadership. I don't care if you're going for the lefty, the righty, the Trumpy, the Bideny, whatever one, the Kamala, the Pamela, the this and or that, wherever you are, we do not get a high conscious level, very life enhancing leadership expert until more consciousness is that way. So it still goes back to us. That's the old people want to be rescued, and they think that they put that the president or presidents, chancellors, whatever in the heck, they are not the one running the country. They are a figurehead. It's like a board of directors. Anybody that's owned a company and now you have a board, it doesn't matter that you're the founder or the owner. You have to do what's right for the board.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So we're not going to get a better board of directors until we're better leaders, experts of ourselves, connecting to our inner authority. That shifts the energy. So yeah, you're so right, Stephen. Oh gosh, I really want people to know that. To stop the blame and getting out of the extremes of polarity. A lot of these people, they believe what they're saying. They live this way.
Hmm. Hmm.
You
Which
know,
makes total sense.
That's why they're so excited about it and pushing it, because they believe this is where they came from or what they believe. And so when we expect to have a leader or a president that is of a higher consciousness, that again is giving our power away. It's saying, I'm going to be rescued by this person coming in. No, you're going to be fooled again. Because just like in the old paradigm where they had icons, stars, starlets, reality stars, all of these things that are above us, and we still have that, and it's going to get ramped up. And that's why for the agenda to work, and I remember my guide saying, and I think you'd asked me the question one time in a session, how is this going to get? And I said, they're going to use the influencers. They're going to use the actors, the models, the stars to manipulate. And people are such followers. Well, so and so did it, or I read that, or the peer pressure, the shame. But if you're connected to your own inner authority, you could say, well, God, I like so and so, but I don't believe that part, or I don't want that part, or I like so and so and I do believe in that part, because you did the research, not because somebody said to do something or not do something. That's why I stay very neutral. I have
And you're not coming from blame.
exactly.
You're
So you're
just,
right.
yeah,
We
sorry,
will
go ahead.
the higher consciousness that you will come when more of us are living out through the higher consciousness, through the new emerging consciousness, are more awake and more aware. Because the resonant field, it's like, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. It's the predominant energetic pattern, the beliefs, the ideas, the predominant energetic frequency, resonance, wavelength, that until that shifts, the new high idea can't come in. It can't even be imagined. It'll be rejected. It'll be resisted. So that's why that 30% have to not get in the us and them, because there will be people that are in the middle that get disenchanted or say, well, I believe in this, but not this, or this didn't work. They'll start making informed choices. They will always be those that are just led and manipulated. That's part of the humanity. That vibrational frequency is here on the earth for some reason. There are those that just don't question. That, oh, well, that's what they said, and I believed them. And then when they find out that they were led astray, they'll be like, well, but I believe them because they're in that position, so I figured they knew. And we've all done that to some degree. But this part of the awakening is like, no, 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 no. And find those others so that the new resonant frequency can get stronger, which will be less on the divisiveness. It'll be more on, well, I don't really agree with that, and I don't think that's right, but that's your thing. And there's going to have to be places for people. That's why there's going to be changes in the states. The states will not be called the United States. There will be a succession of some states. There's going to be a lot of changes because of people's beliefs.
And that will happen, you think, in the near future?
Oh, yeah. I don't think next 2 years, no. But I did tell someone, I mentioned Texas doing that, and they live over there. They're in Austin, and they said it's already in the works. So again, I'm looking now to 2050. Like 2050, things will be so changed. My guide said 2020 is a turning point, and that by 2025, things will be so changed, radically different. That some things we won't recognize. But we're leading into a 2045 to 2050 pivotal point in 2050 and beyond. So we've got a lot of change to go through. If you look at some of these things that were instituted, it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a year or two. It takes time. Although I do see energetically in what I've been shown through the channeling and through the visions that there are some quantum leaps, and I think we've already seen that, where things go, woo, all of a sudden. See, again, this is what's so interesting for me is having all these visions, and now I see myself in them, walking, doing things, and I'm like, oh my God, I saw that in the vision. So let's just look at common sense to get people more into the creator economy and not being over focused on labor for labor's sake and automation. how was that going to happen? Well, it's happening now. Certain people are wanting to go back to these jobs that were either not paid very well and not fulfilling. They're finding another way somehow. Somehow they're finding, whether credit, I don't know, because some of these people are, not having big savings account, but they're finding another way. They're saying, no, I don't want to go back to that. I have clients that have companies that they're telling me they're having trouble getting employees. They don't want to. So, see,
Uh,
in a way, all this had to happen in a collective aspect to get more of the collective to change, to have a wider spread or broader awakening. It couldn't just be as isolated, because the awakening has been happening for quite a long, since the late 80s, since the harmonic convergence. It's been going on, this trajectory, this converging flow, which started in 2005, with everything happening all at once. And I think that's another thing people have to be aware of. In this part of the converging flow of awakening, everything's happening all at once: good, bad, the ugly, beautiful, coming together, hateful, scary, controlling, opening, freeing, creative, loving, soul community, soul tribe, soulmate. It's all coming together, but all at once. And I think that's what's destabilizing for a lot of people, because they're using their rational mind, their ego mind, saying it has to be good or bad or this or that. No, it's all of it. And we have to find our own openings, the spiritual openings, the nudge, the spiritual nudge, the urge to create, to listen to that inner guidance, to listen to our heart, to our soul, and listen and follow through or follow up on that soul call, what we're called to do at this time, knowing that in doing that individually, however we do it, we are helping the whole. We are doing our mission, our purpose. We are co-creating through the new paradigm and the new emerging consciousness for this new earth, or new way of being on earth. The earth has always been receptive. And that's another thing, just briefly. The earth is becoming much more electrical, and us as the complementary energy or aspect to earth needs to be more magnetic. So if we're living too electrical, it's causing an imbalance. This is why more of the pausing, being in the void, the meditation, meditative state, why things sometimes seem to be stalled, stagnant, or slowed down a lot. It's teaching us to embrace and more open up and embrace, imbibe the new emerging consciousness. But to do that, we have to be more magnetic. So there is a shift in the pole there. And this is why you're going to see a lot of extreme weather, earth, water. I predict a lot more rain next year, a lot more to do with water in general, a lot to do with earth. Farming, that kind of stuff. But it's when we become, the electrical is the doingness of us, the masculine. The magnetic is the reception, the receiving the input. So this is about shifting, that we receive the input, the divine inspiration, and then the inspired action. So we get the inspiration, the nudge, the message, the feeling, the impulse. That's being in that receptivity, because it could be seconds, minutes, hours, days, just showing up more open. And then the electrical aspect of us that wants to individuate and do the action, we move in more into inspired action, not just action for action's sake, out of fear and just to be doing and doing, but action that is mindful, that is appropriate to where we are and what we're doing, so that it is coming naturally, organically from the soul.
wow. What a download. Thank you. I feel really grateful that I got to be a part of this and receive all that information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being so present, and just beautiful exchange. I've really enjoyed this, and I do.
I get
Oh,
chills all over my whole body. Just there was so much there on so many levels, and yeah, kind of the theme of it all, which is wow, we're seeing all these things play out, but divinity consciousness is behind it all, and it's our opportunity to align even more to the truth of who we are and bring that forth. So
Woo,
that's
yes.
exciting. That's very
Woo, I
exciting.
love that. That's right. Divinity conscious is behind it all. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh gosh, that's beautiful. That
yeah.
and that's the truth. That is the truth with a big T.
Well, I hope to do more of these. This was selfishly.
Yes, I
This
love it.
was
Oh, my
great.
crown chakra is woo, buzzing, buzzing. The guides are here. I mean, it's just woo,
This is wow.
oversoul and fun. Yeah, let's definitely we will. Thank you so much, and I love that. Divinity consciousness is behind it all. Yeah.
I plucked that from you.
Did
I
you?
just
Well, no, that's
or,
beautiful. That's yes, that's
or just from the energy of where you're speaking from, and I
yeah,
feel enveloped in that. So yeah,
yeah, me too. I think that's a good place to
feels that
be.
way.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you. And we'll
thank
be in
you.
touch. Good to connect.
Sounds great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.